Hello, Waterloo Region. You're listening to Meet the Candidate on CKMS-FM 102.7 Radio Waterloo. My name is Bob Jonkman. In this episode, we meet Douglas Ross, the People's Party candidate for Waterloo. Radio Waterloo provides 25 minutes of free airtime to Waterloo Region candidates running in the 2025 federal election. This is not an interview, but 25 minutes of unstructured time. Candidates could tell you about their platform, the local Waterloo Region issues they'll be tackling, why they're running, or what they do outside of politics. Note that the views expressed are not necessarily those of the Radio Waterloo Board of Directors, volunteers, sponsors, or advertisers. Now, let's meet the candidate, Douglas Ross.
Hi, Bob. First of all, I want to thank you and Community Radio for giving us this opportunity. And I feel like I'm coming home here because I hear things like bird talk and I hear the artist talking about, and people on the radio, I'm not sure who he was, but he talked about community radio as a chance for us to identify ourselves as a community. And that's a big thing that I saw in this election campaign. So are we ready to go now? Okay. So I'm going to introduce myself, and then I'm going to go back to the community theme that Bob and I were just talking about. My name is Douglas Ross. I am a candidate for the Member of Parliament for Waterloo. And for the next half hour, I want to focus on certain things. One of those things is the Waterloo community experience. Not the first one I had on the list, but since I'm right in the middle of the community experience, I want to do that. Waterloo is both an artificial federal construct and our home, my house. I want to talk to you at some point in this about the role of the Member of Parliament and how the current party system is getting between the people and their representatives, not just here, but across Canada. Then I want to redefine the role as not just a representative of the people, but as a role of amplifying the voices of the community of Waterloo into Canadian policy and laws. First of all, I'm going to go back and explain why I'm here. It was never a thought of mine to get into Parliament or even to enter into politics. It started with the COVID issue that was going on. Our family got so divided on that, so divided that even to this day, people are not quite comfortable with each other because they took strong views during COVID, both for pro-vaccine and against the vaccine. And that's what got me thinking about this whole thing. What happened? Why is my family being affected by what's going around us? I mean, the family unit used to be something that we could always go home to, and we could talk out our issues and our problems, and we would feel safe and we would feel secure. Well, with COVID, that didn't happen. That increased when I went out and started listening to people, and I got involved with people who were very committed to being against vaccines. And when I was talking to them and sort of trying to express, and I really like these people, and it wasn't just their reaction to me, but it was a reaction all across everywhere I went. It seemed like Donald Trump when he got elected in 2018 emboldened a new voice in our community. And that voice was one of anger, bullying, self-righteousness, and something where people were no longer treated with respect. Maybe they never were. Maybe I was naive. But it seemed if I said something wrong, I was interrupted and explained how poor my thinking was, or I was an idiot or a fool or whatever. And I was shocked by this kind of response. And that's carried on. That's what I see now. When I watch the House of Parliament today, or while Trudeau was still there, I could not fathom the fact of the insulting and the brutality and the personal attacks that were going against both leaders inside the party. And I thought, in my own mind, this is not the way to run the Canada. It's just not the way to do it. And it struck me that at that point that both the right and the left, and I won't put any party affiliations to it, they didn't really want to run Canada. They wanted the power. They wanted to be the governing body, and they wanted to set the rules. So I started looking into it a little bit, and I realized, or I found out, that a party can become elected as a majority government with 39% popular vote. That means that when we have a majority government in Canada, 61% of Canadians, that's me and you, may not agree with what they're doing. That was one issue that was coming out. The second issue is I saw that the representatives of different of the communities, the MPs, they have to vote along party lines, so that if we have somebody, and I won't, in our riding, who's an MP, they are required by their party whips to vote according to what the party needs to stay in power. They're no longer have the responsibility of speaking for the community. They have the responsibility to speak for the party and to keep the party in power. That came to my final point, which was we get a chance to determine who goes into as our representative and who is the ruling party once every 4 years. And after that, after we put our vote into that ballot box, we're done, because we have very little say. And I learned after that people are constantly talking to me about how do we influence our MP, and how do we get to our MP, and how do we get a whole bunch of people behind us to get the kind of attention that we need to an issue. These people aren't radicals. They see that something's wrong. And because it's wrong, they want to do something, and they want their voice to be heard. The current system is not set or designed for that to happen. And that's when I decided that I was going to get into politics. And it didn't happen by design. I got a call from the executive of the regional People's Party of Canada, and they asked me if I would be interested in running. And I thought about it, and I said, sure, but first I want to attend a couple meetings of people, not just the executive. And I wanted to see what they were talking about and where they were going. So I did. I attended one of a town hall meeting run by the regional PPC group, and I saw a lot of people in there. It was very scattered. They would get up and they were allowed to speak about the things that were bothering them. That's community. They weren't asking everybody to follow them. They just said, this is what's bothering me, whether it's 15-minute cities, whether it's the COVID vaccination, whether it's chemtrails, whatever it was, they spoke. They're pretty angry about it. And they're angry because they do all the research in it, and they have uncovered some truths that are not typically accepted by mainstream media. And I thought about it. I thought, these people are trying to get to the truth. They may not be doing it in the right way. They may be a little bit loud and vocal in what they're doing. They may be disorganized, whatever. They're still trying to find the truth. So I was impressed with that. The second thing that happened is when I was there at the meeting, a middle-aged woman was sitting there, and we got talking, and I was interested in why she was there. She explained to me that slowly over her life, as a mother and as a career woman, that she began aware that maybe everything that appears in the media was not exactly the truth. So she started asking a lot of questions to her family, to her friends, and she was surprised because when she asked these questions out of curiosity, she ran into arguments, and she was told that what she was talking about was not right, and she shouldn't be allowed to speak those kind of things. And rather than doing anything about that with them or arguing with them, her and her husband simply decided that they were going to surround themselves with sort of like-minded people who were curious about the world and were seeing different things that were happening inside the world. And they did. They set up monthly supper meetings, and they formed a whole new group of people. And why she was telling me all this is she wanted to know if I knew a plumber that could join the circle. And I mean, by joining the circle is they wanted a plumber who was curious about the world and wanted to contribute to not only just fixing the house that they needed to do, but to participate in sort of this beginning movement of curiosity about what the world was like. So that's why I'm here. It's sort of a long, convoluted thing. I'm not always, I didn't want to say I'm not pleased to be here. I'm not pleased with the environment that we live in. I'm shocked at the politics, the pressures that you're put under, the questions you're put under, the anger that is directed towards me as a candidate, not because it's personal against me, as people are so upset about the homeless situation or they're upset about the economic situation, but people literally come and yell at me before they say hello because they're that upset. So that's one focus that I want to talk about is our community experience, what it's like to live inside the community. Now I'm going to back into the first part of it, which is the lived experience of you here in Waterloo. And I say that because I opened up in my own mind, I started to do a thing, what I called as it was heard. I wouldn't tell people I was a candidate for the government. I would just talk to people. And I would ask them questions. And I didn't attempt to influence them. I didn't attempt to reaffirm my truths. I just listened. And what I began to see is that everybody told me the truth that they thought was reality. And when I started listening to that, I started understanding things about myself and also about our community. I think the current political system is flawed. I think people who sit in boardrooms rely on opinion polls, and those opinion polls dictate what they're going to do and say in the public image. The opinion polls of people, ordinary people, don't reflect their lived experience. So if you ask me if I would like, a tax break, of course I'd say yes. It still doesn't reflect the suffering that I'm going through because of the accelerating costs of living or the problems of housing. But I would say yes to that thing. But what I really want is the systemic issue solved, the cost of inflation, the housing crisis, the immigration. I want the root cause of that solved. I don't want to just give one opinion and get a whole program based out of what I think about one aspect of that opinion. So I want to talk about the lived experience of people in Waterloo, what I heard. I'm not saying it's true, not saying it's scientifically validated, but it sort of comes home when I come back here into the community radio, because that's what you have been doing all this time, and listening to people and hearing their voices and allowing them to speak. And I think that's absolutely important for going forward. The last part, I looked at it 3 parts: the lived experience of people, the Waterloo community experience, and the last one is the community experience. And this is based out of recent things, but I want to talk about our natural resources, how the mismanagement of our most significant competitive advantage has been mismanaged by people, not by people, but by a system that was established 100 years ago, and one that never could have imagined were us in the situation that we're in today. I have a vision called National Wealth Shared Destiny that one day will be introduced as a bill in Parliament, hopefully by me, but if not, by another who will follow me. And at the heart of this is my belief in the pristine ecosystems of Canada. I'm going to tell you heart, and then I'll give you into other stuff. When I was growing up and I traveled across the world, I began realizing that our land still wanted us, and as opposed to other countries where I would see the effects of a huge population and on the waterways and on the streets and in the fields. And I realized, especially canoeing around Algonquin Park, our land still wants us. And I believe in the future, as we become more and more urbanized, that it's not only our in our best interest to preserve this wilderness, but also to open it up because people are going to want to find out where they came from. And we came from the environment. We came from our natural resources. We started in the lands of Canada with the waterways and with the trees, and we built our lives in that way. Today it's a different situation. Donald Trump went after us by saying, he'd like us to be the 51st state. And he did that after saying he's going to tariff us. The object is good. He wants to protect manufacturing in the United States. Unfortunately, we got caught in that world where we wouldn't be paying more. Our goods it's going to be harder for us to get them into the States. The 51st state thing really intrigued me because when I did my research on it, I think that Canada is going to be a global power by 2050. We have more natural resources than most of the countries inside the world. Our clean water, our minerals, our oil and gas fields, our commitment to alternative sources of energy, they're all ringing with potential that could put us all in a situation long term where we could feel better about ourselves, our prosperity would be insured, and our children would be taken care of. And that's the one thing that we're facing every day is what's happening in our lives with the cost of living. We can't afford, and we're afraid that the children are not going to be taken care of. My favorite statement about this whole thing is that Donald Trump is like a shark in the water. And sharks are attracted to blood, which means that they're injured. Something is injured, and it's fresh food for the shark. Canada is weak now, and it's not weak because the Liberals or the Conservatives is weak because the system that we've set up is hurting us. And Trump simply attacked, and he took a bite out of us by saying the 51st state, and he found out that it hits a nerve inside of us. The ironic thing is that Trump has decided that he wants to make the United States great again. A very quick analysis looks at the way the United States is going to be great again is by taking over our greatest resource, our natural resources. So the United States will be great again because he has the ability to control the potential inside our country that we haven't been able to do. And we need to start doing that today. And it starts with a unified vision of how we're going to do that. And I don't think I'll have the time to explain it right now. And the campaign's winding down. But I'm not going to stop talking to people about this because there will be another campaign. There will be other candidates, and we need to start thinking about that. And the talk that was only my introduction, I'm not going to get into much of it. These are the kind of things that I want to talk about. First, I want the whole concept of the common good be reintroduced into national politics, the national dialogue. We got common sense, but we've forgotten about the common good. And the common good is what's right for all people. And that's what I see inside our communities every day. We live side by side with people of different nationalities, different religions, but we take care of the streets, the environment, we talk. That's what the common good is about. One thing I liked about the PPC party is the idea of governing everything by principles. And what that means, principles are like rudders on a boat that direct you, especially through tough times, through storms, so you can keep going in the direction you want, which is true north. What happens if you don't have principles, and I don't see the principles in the existing ruling parties, is the boat, you can have the biggest motor on it, the strongest motor in the world, but you're dictated by the currents and by the winds and by the environment, and you may never ever get to where you want because you truly don't know where you want to go because you don't have those principles. My principles are the PPC party principles. Freedom, the freedom to choose, responsibility, that's self-responsibility and accountability for what we choose, fairness and equality, and respect. I have a particular one called integrity, which is something that I've tried to spend my life learning, which means doing the right thing, then doing the next right thing, and doing things the right way. And you know what? If it doesn't work out and you make a mistake, you start again. You correct what was wrong and you get going. If you do it right, you just keep doing it right. These values and these principles are enshrined in the Canadian Bill of Rights and Freedoms, and they talk about dignity, the rule of law, equality, diversity, and inclusion. Now, people say these are esoteric things. They're not. They're things that come to fruition in our daily life. When a member of Parliament insults somebody on the other side in Parliament, they're violating the respect of that person. They're also violating the dignity of that person, because dignity simply means the self-worth and that what we contribute to that thing. So if I'm told that my self-worth is minimal and it's not important, then my dignity is affected on that. So finally, the last thing that I want to talk about is I was influenced by a young Canadian woman speaking on CBC about her book, and it's Democracy May Not Exist, but we'll miss it when it's gone. My experience in this whole election is I'm questioning whether democracy does exist. We're being influenced every day by big media machines. We're influenced by parachuting candidates. We have at least 6 identified issues in Canada where the party has parachuted candidates into local ridings. And that means that people in a boardroom someplace in Ottawa or Toronto have decided that it's better that they place their candidate into that situation than have the local people put their candidate in. And I think that's a violation of our rights and our privileges. But it's not out in the open enough now. How are we doing for time? 2 minutes? All right, and I want to, that's pretty well everything that I wanted to say. I'm in this, I said this right to the beginning, a friend of mine, I'm not in it to win it, I'm in it to change it. I think the Conservatives talk about real change, but I think they're still pandering to the public, still working from opinion polls. I want to build a community, I want to build a system that starts with the people in this community and works it up. I think we got everything we need right here in Waterloo to do whatever we need to do, and I would start with the role of the MP and changing the way the MP relates to the people. Thank you, Bob. I appreciate the time very much.
You've been listening to Douglas Ross, the People's Party of Canada candidate for Waterloo on Meet the Candidate. The views expressed were those of the candidate, not necessarily those of the Radio Waterloo Board of Directors, volunteers, sponsors, or advertisers. All Waterloo Region candidates were invited to meet the candidate, but some candidates have declined to appear on the radio, and some have not responded at all. Remember, the election is on Monday, the 28th of April. Show notes, podcast, and video will be available shortly on the Radio Waterloo website at radiowaterloo.ca/MTC. This show is produced by me, Bob Jonkman, in the studio of CKMS-FM. The theme music is Falling Sky by Jason Shaw of Audionautics.com and used under Creative Commons Attribution Only 4.0 International License.